Hello, everybody. So sorry to break up your conversation, your very lively conversation. Very good morning to you all, and very warm welcome to all of you as well to our special event here today, our second King Yoga Experience event entitled Journey of the Soul, The Path to Enlightenment. And a special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to many of you who were here last month at our inaugural event and who are back here, including Steve, who came all the way from Houston last time, and I think he liked the event so much that I think he decided to move here. Isn't that so? But it's true he has moved here. I don't think that's the only reason, but I think it contributed to the decision. So all King Yoga Experience events are self-contained, so no worries if you missed the last one. But we do have a video recording of it if you're interested, so you can see what happened last time and learn the practices that were covered last time. And we also made it a point to get to know Dr. King better at the last event. And as for the presentation today, it will be taken by the Reverend LaSalle Butcher and the Reverend Michael Scully. Both are long-standing members of the Aetherius Society, and they both knew Dr. King very well and worked alongside him for years. And LaSalle will be taking the presentation on practices, the 30 minutes segment on practices. And so she'll be guiding us into special practices, and also an initiation into a sacred mantra will be given. And the goal of that, of course, is to attempt to get us into as high a state as possible in this event. And the next main segment for 30 minutes will be a brief lecture presentation taken by the Reverend Michael Scully, and that will be on Journey of the Soul, which is, I guess, probably why a lot of you are here, is to hear about that. And it's based on a metaphysical treatise called The Nine Freedoms, and it's a very unique set of teachings, unheard of anywhere else on earth. But given the time limit, we're going to just keep this journey within Earth up to enlightenment, because it definitely goes beyond that. And so I think you're going to find the presentation today very, very interesting, enlightening, I hope, as well. And so I'm just going to keep this segment very brief, like what I'm going to say, so that I can bring out the first presenter very soon. But just let me run through the program very quickly for those of you who are here for the first time. So once the Reverend LaSalle Butcher comes out, there will be 30 minutes, as I mentioned, for practices. And then after that, there will be very brief sharing of any feedback you may like to share, just for a few minutes. And then we'll have a brief break, maximum 5 minutes, just a stretch break, water break, or washroom break. And then right after that, we'll come back and listen to Reverend Michael's presentation. And then after his presentation of 30 minutes on the soul journey, then we will have more sharing of experiences for about 15 minutes. And then that will be the end of the program in the temple. And then after that, we would like to invite you all, for those who would like to stay, to join us for some refreshments and further sharing over at the George King Center. And the refreshments is lovingly prepared by our in-house chef, Melissa. And so we hope you can stay for that. So without further ado, I would introduce out Reverend LaSalle Butcher.
Thank you very much.
Please feel free to turn your chairs to face the center.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ashima. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the team of the King Yoga Experience presenters. They have put a lot of work in it. And I know every now and then I get an email like 12:30, midnight. So I know everybody is on their toes and puts a lot of effort into this. So thank you very much to all of you. And I think most of them are here today. And in addition to this, I would like to say a very warm welcome to each of you. And I hope you will enjoy today with us. One of the great gifts that we have received from our master, Dr. George King, are transmissions, messages from cosmic beings. And in 1958, Dr. King received from the Master Jesus a set of teachings, we call them the 12 blessings. And at that time, the Master Jesus and various other cosmic masters spoke to this world to give us magnificent guidance, guidance which helps all of us. And we would like to further interpret today, especially a master, the Master Saint Guling, a member of the Great White Brotherhood. The Master Saint Guling gave at that time instructions and guidance to us about one of the aspects which is our first practice today, which is the practice of the wonderful violet flame, the white light, and the golden sphere, which we call the practice of the presence. So our master was at the time in London, and he received these teachings, and I would like you now, if you wish, close your eyes and open yourself to the words of the Master Saint Guling, who blesses us with his wisdom.
Before these blessings, all those who come along should sit in silence. During this silence, you should all think through your physical and mental bodies, the transmuting power of the velvet fire, for that is really how it feels, just like a soft velvet when it caresses your aura with its violet fingers. You should then sink upwards this flame of transmutation, and then your bodies will be clean. This is the surest practice for all students of the truth in these days. If you could place around yourself a protective wall of this velvet flame, you would be absolutely invulnerable from all types of attack by the dark forces. There are unique exceptions to this rule, but none of these applies to you people. Think then is a violet, a colored, a velvet flame up through your aura and your body, and make out of it a huge protective shell in which you can live in cleanliness and also continue with your spiritual work. This practice has been given to you by Master Aetherius. So great was his love that he saw fit to reveal it so that all men may use this spiritual practice. In future, all of you will do this before the next blessing, and after the blessing you can then sing down the great and mighty golden fire from the spark within, and let this golden fire give wisdom to your brain, love to your heart, understanding which is lodged in the solar plexus center. All these things you can do. If you do these things, great change will be brought about within you. You noticed even this very night that your Earth leader allowed himself only 2.5 minutes in which to again rapport with me. All the manipulations necessary to heighten one part of consciousness and dampen another could be done easily in this time. This should be illustration to all that if you use great power of violet flame properly, you can arise your consciousness and also do much good to your body and your mind and your emotions and your etheric and your soul. practice many times, and one day perfection, like a sun, will dawn. Then will you rejoice? For you will have found great secret. Treat this in sacred manner, for very great, most holy practice. Wake up.
Great words of wisdom that can definitely help us on our journey. So we will now together perform the practice of the presence and the practice of the violet flame, which the Master Saint Guling mentioned. There will be then the white light coming down through the ethers and the practice of the golden light coming down through our body from the sphere above our heads. So I would suggest that as we go through the practice, you note whether it has any effect on you, on your physical body, whether you feel anything, and make it alive for you, because from then on now, you will have this as a base and go forward, each step bringing you closer to that magnificent aim that we all have, enlightenment. So if you would like to, please close your eyes as I'm guiding you through this practice. Place your hands on the knees. I'd like to say some words about the Master Aetherius. He stated, "This practice has been closely guarded, secret for thousands of years. It is known to the Great White Brotherhood. It has been decided to make this practice public, as it was in the early days of Atlantis. It will help you in every good thing that you do. And as you know, an important aspect of reaching enlightenment is to give service, and it is very important in these days. In order to perform this practice, I would ask you to put your left hand over the solar plexus center and your right hand over the left. And sit up straight and be not strained in any way. Be relaxed. And think way up into ethers of space, filled with countless expressions of the Creator. All these expressions moving forward through experience. And we are a part of all this. And visualize in space a brilliant, living, vibrant white light. Guide it down through the ethers and into the head, flowing down through the neck, the front and the back of the neck, and down over the shoulders, and out into the heart center, which is located in front of the body, just beneath the breastbone, about 6 inches in front of the body. And allow this center to be filled with this wondrous, brilliant white light. Now let us focus our mind on the goddess Terra. And with reverence and with love, think of her most generous heart. She allows us a home in space and nourishes us. And request from her her violet flame, the cleansing, uplifting. And see and feel this flowing up through the lower portion of your bodies, physical and subtle bodies. And see it rising up and join it with the white light in the heart center. And visualize now above the top of your head a wondrous golden sphere. It is the seat of divinity within us. And now take the white light and the violet flame in the heart center and move them upwards through the top of the head and offer it to this golden sphere, the spark of God within us. And request its blessing. It's a beautiful golden light. Feel it like a shaft of sunshine, brilliant. See it filling your physical and subtle bodies. And visualize yourself as a shining golden ovoid filled with this essence from within. Another very significant tool that we have been given on our journey in these days is the great science of mantra. If you do not perform mantra in your regular practices, spiritual practices every day, I would strongly suggest you do it. It is the most uplifting and powerful practice that will help us and help others. If we look at the word mantra in the dictionary, it is derived from Sanskrit, and it is meaning instrument of thought. This implies that its power comes from the thought of the great masters in the science of mantra, and then, of course, eventually, definitely from the Absolute itself. So mantra is an expression of energy which we can use to better ourselves, better others. We can use it in many different ways. And our master said that if we are in contact with higher powers, which our practices will do, if you enter a supermarket, the vibrations in this supermarket will change, and change for the better. So one of the things that, of course, is needed for the repetition of mantra is concentration. Concentration is basically needed for all practices. After all, from our experience, I'm sure you are aware that if we dilly-dally here and there and then compare it with focusing on a certain subject or on a job, it goes much faster, easier, and will be more efficient. So we're trying to think what we can achieve with the help of mantra. It can definitely attune us to higher spiritual powers. It can cleanse the aura, which is a very important step in our spiritual development, I'm sure you realize. Our thought pattern will be more positive. And remember, thoughts are things that can hang around us. And if the mantra cleanses the aura, that will definitely be helpful. Mantra can make us a better healer, a better prayer, and overall, it can help us definitely on our efforts to become a more spiritual person. So I would like now to introduce the playing of the mantra by our master. Our master stated that you cannot give a mantra to another person unless that mantra lives within you. So we have today chosen to present our master in audio so that you will be initiated into the mantra. Ernesto, if you would be kind enough.
I will say it slowly so that you can learn it. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum.
We will now practice the mantra. If you would be kind enough to place your hands on the knees with the palms upwards. We'll practice out loud and then whisper it, which is saying the mantra without sound, just with the lips, and then think it, and that will be you rolling the tongue back on the roof of the mouth and think the mantra. As we know, each step will have different effects on us. So be aware of it, be open to it, and maybe remember it, so that if you have any questions afterwards, we can speak about it. So let us join now. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. We will now whisper it. Now rolling the tongue back, we will say it silently without sound, not engaging the larynx at all. And stop. We're all aware that one of the reasons we are making this journey through experience is so that we gain all possible experience on this planet, and then, of course, going on from here to other planets. As we do this, we are having a big purpose, and that purpose is to praise Almighty God, the Absolute that did breathe out everything in creation. And as an aspect of the Absolute, we are therefore responsible to help all things in creation, uplift all things, make it whole. And in this case, mantra can be an incredible tool because it can truly help us make a better person, but also use this to give healing. It will make us a more potent healer, and we can also use it in prayer to help others in this way. One of the great protective forces of mankind, the Great White Brotherhood, use mantra in wonderful ceremonies, which is described in a little book that we have. Our master had the privilege to attend one of these ceremonies, which is entitled The Great White Brotherhood Gives the Light to the World. And I would encourage you to read it sometime when you get a chance. Would any of you now like to share any of the thoughts you had, any of the feelings you had from the mantra or the practice of the presence?
When we did the mantra, I felt the strength of the mantra when I put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, felt the strength of it, the energy. But when we stopped, when we stopped, there was a peace. The energy just kind of settled. There was a peacefulness in the whole room after we did the mantra. It was like a settling of the energy.
Thank you.
Really had calming.
So Anna felt a great peace after the repetition of the mantra with the tongue against the roof of the mouth. Thank you very much for sharing, Anna. Anybody else? I personally feel that mantra is an extremely powerful help, and especially in praying and giving healing. And it is definitely helping with concentration, which is one of the big aspects I feel. So I wish you all that you find some help through the mantra, and I hope you will all include in your spiritual practices as often as possible the mantra. We have other mantras which I know will be dealt with in future presentations. We will have a brief break now, and Reverend Michael Scully will then have his presentation on the 9 freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, LaSalle. Let's be back here in 5 minutes. 11:28, please. Hi, everybody. Hello. It's time. It's time to pause your conversations, and so that we can move on to the next segment of our program. And I'd just like to thank LaSalle for her magnificent presentation. And so once again, we got 2 more practices to add to our repertoire of practices to help us on our journey through evolution so that we can be a better channel for God's light to flow through us and help us on our spiritual work. So I'd just like to say that, how should I introduce the next segment? And I was thinking, when I was in high school, my study style was, right before the exam, I would stay up all night and just cram as much as I could. And that actually worked really well for many years. And so Cliff's Notes was my best friend many, many times. So today we're going to hear Michael's notes on the 9 freedoms, but only up until the 4th freedom on enlightenment. And So without further ado, I would introduce out our presenter, Reverend Michael Scully.
Okay. You're going to hear a lot of my voice because I've just been told that for some reason the extracts which I picked out for you aren't there. So I'll have to talk them through. Now, the 9 Freedoms, this book here, was given by Mars Sector 6 in 1961. And it leads us through our progression from, shall we say, worms in the ground to solar existence. We are just going to talk about the first 4 freedoms, which will bring us to enlightenment. As Ashima said, these will be cliff notes because our master gave a lecture on these first 4 freedoms, or several lectures on these first 4 freedoms, and he took just over 6 hours on it. So as I have half an hour, these will be quick. Now, these first 4 freedoms, bravery, love, service, and enlightenment, they're not separate. They essentially all come together. You have to be brave, you have to be able to love, you have to be able to give service, and you will achieve enlightenment, all in synonymously. So although they're given in order, they actually come together. If you think about it, you will achieve an enlightened existence in certain things, and then you will go on to something else and achieve an enlightened existence in that thing as well. So let us start with bravery. The journey to a spiritual enlightenment is a long one. However, the end of it is not, from our vantage point, in sight. To set out, we need to be brave enough to go forward into a journey that we don't really know the end. The 9 freedoms obviously were given to us to give us some inkling of what lies in front of us. In centuries past, most journeys, long journeys, were once again into somewhere. They were confident, or they hoped fervently, that there was something there to get to, but they had to be brave enough to set out in the first place. The journey to enlightenment is a bit like that. Although we are, in the 9 freedoms, given a little bit of an inkling of what's out there, and certain people throughout the ages have given us an inkling of what we are getting to, basically we're going out, not quite on a limb, but we're going somewhere where we don't really know where the road signs are. But the route has to be traveled many times, not fully in the route, but we have to have lives of understanding before we get to full enlightenment. So I will give a quote from the Master Aetherius, Mars Sector 6. It says, "Freedom from fear can be brought into active manifestation within all men, providing they have knowledge. Knowledge of the right kind dispels fear." And I've used that as a description of this entire book. Knowledge. Every single freedom is based on knowledge. Now, knowledge of the right kind. You can be a nuclear physicist and have tremendous knowledge on nuclear fission, but that's not necessarily going to help you in your spiritual advancement, which is why he says knowledge of the right kind dispels fear. Then later on he says bravery is victory through experience. The Master Jesus in the 12 blessings says, make your brain live in everlasting thankfulness for experience. And the purpose of creation, we are told, is for us to return back to God as fully conscious gods with all the experience that creation can give us. So knowledge is the key word on everything. And I've put as a lead question, should I say, how can I become brave? The more you learn, the more you understand. When you understand something, you realize there's nothing to be afraid of. So you can become brave, at least in that area. So you will become brave as you become knowledgeable. We here are trying to become knowledgeable about spiritual things, so that if we see ghosts, say, we know, all right, we know what they are. We don't need to be afraid of them. And then the Master also says, knowledge gained by adherence to the unchangeable laws of creation can bring you to that stage of enlightenment, little e, which dispels fear. Now, let's go to love. Love is the next freedom. When you become brave, or have a degree of bravery, you can feel free enough to love. Those of you that have experience in loving another person will find that sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes, at least in my experience, it was probably the hardest thing I ever did, being married to a person, because you have to consider the other person. You have to love them to the point that you can allow them to be themselves. So when you get bravery, you can feel free to love people. Now, in the freedoms, the Master...
Excuse me. Great news. We found the extracts.
You've found the extracts.
They have materials.
They have materials. All right, well, let me rework my thing. We'll have to skip bravery because we're already 10 minutes into our half an hour.
If you like, whenever you're ready,
Yes.
just let Ernesto.
Yes, I will.
know.
Yes, okay. So, now that I've done half my thing on love, Ernesto, how about those extracts on love?
The second freedom will be love. Love is not the result of ignorance, but the direct result of applied enlightenment. Become enlightened, again understanding of the feelings and problems of all peoples, and love becomes a living, vibrant, all-pervasive thing. You will be asked, after the initiation called death, either why you did not use this power more fully, or why you attended to misuse the basic aspects of it. Be prepared for this question, for as sure as God it will be asked, and you will answer.
Notice in the second quote, he's talking about become enlightened. This is the small e. You will get to the big E, enlightened, but this is the small e, the progressive enlightenment, the progressive understanding, the progressive appreciation of this. Now, love also, he's talking about the higher aspects of love. And love is he describes, is the third degree creative force. From the original concept of the absolute to the aspects of the absolute, that the potential that the lords of creation can use, then we come to our existence here, where the highest aspect is called love. Highest power is called love. But it is the prime energy that we encounter within creation. Even though our human affections, they are regarded as the lowest aspect of love, we have to start from there. We can then raise that love into a more impersonal love, to expand it from close. If you think about it, when you're a baby, you love your mother, and then you learn to love your family. And then you may, as you grow older, you learn to love your friends and so on. And as you progress, you learn to love more and more people. Now, admittedly, you may get to the point where you understand a lot of people and you think, why should I love these people? And yet, I've written there, how can I cultivate love? And love is the first gift from knowledge, and yet it's the first hurdle of selfishness that we have to overcome. We look around and think, well, they don't love me, so why should I love them? But knowledge brings us the wisdom to understand that reciprocal love, which is what we're trying to get in this entire world so that the world as a whole loves themselves and others, has to be started by somebody. So why not me? So let's go on to service. Now, service is where bravery and love amalgamate into helping others, because you are brave enough to do so, and you love others sufficiently that you want to work to help them. You need to step out of yourself, or away from your selfish self, in order to understand them so that you can love them. Okay, maybe some of the things you won't particularly love, but this is where the dispassionate aspect of love comes. My parents used to say when I was naughty, which was quite often, we love you, we just don't love your actions, so learn to make your actions lovable. So this is what we have to do to all human beings. Now, when I think of service, I personally think of a rather heavy burden. To me, it's a heavy word, service. Even though, we all do service. But when I think of helping others, I think, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I can do that. I can help others. Let me see, where are we in as far as the extracts? Okay, let's have an extract.
The third of freedom will be a service. Transmute selfishness into service for others, and your reward will come. Enlightenment, like the break of dawn upon the darkest night, will cast the shadows of this night before it.
So we're in service, we lose our selfishness. A lot of people are worried about spiritual progression because they're always told, oh, well, even the masters say you lose your self into the whole. Well, we've got a few millions of years before that really happens, because you think of the Master, Mars Sector 6. He's a personality. The Master Aetherius is a personality. When you're in the army, you may be marching in step with every single other person as one unified whole, but you are still yourself. These people, these entities are still themselves, even though they're integrated with the whole far more than we are. So you never lose yourself, because if you think about it, you mix water and something else, to create a flavored water, it becomes one. But if you look at it, the flavor is still there itself. The water is still there as itself. All right, it's difficult to separate the two, but they're still there as separate things, even though they are fully integrated into flavored water. And so when you lose your selfishness, you don't lose yourself. You just lose the wanting to me. You think, us. How can I help other people? What use is service to me? Only that the whole universe is built on service. As you serve others, you are aligning yourself with the entirety of creation and the absolute itself, which made the prime directive that action and reaction are equal and opposite. Mars Sector 6 said service is the result of applied spiritual logic. And the spiritual logic is that from here on out, all existence is service to others. The Great White Brotherhood serves mankind. The Cosmic Masters serve or help backward people around the galaxy. The sun serves us by giving us the power to exist. And so on, all the way back to the Absolute, who is serving by powering creation so that all can learn through their experiences. And right at the end of the 9 freedoms, the Master says, from the 9th freedom, which is solar existence, for we are told that we know not what love be until we enter the gates of the sun in lasting service to all. So from service, we come to enlightenment. Got lots of notes on enlightenment. Let's have the quotes first, please.
The 4th freedom will be enlightenment, a bravery, a dispensation of pure love, a service. These attributes can help the aspirant to bring enlightenment into being. And know this, that enlightenment is freedom from ignorance.
And in the book here, there's a little illustration which uses the quote, "There is only one sin on earth, that is ignorance." And you think about it. If you're ignorant, you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to make a mess of it. So become enlightened. Know about things. Now, the first 3 freedoms are things we have to do. things we have to understand so that we can use all that we understand and have knowledge of to become enlightened. And when you become enlightened, you begin to understand everything, or most things. I say most things rather than everything, because you will progress through enlightenment. You will become more and more enlightened. In a way, enlightenment is the result of all knowledge. He said, freedom from ignorance. The more knowledge you have, the more enlightened you become. And then we go on briefly onto the fifth freedom, which is cosmic consciousness, and you're still learning bravery. You're still learning to give service. You're still learning to love. You're still learning about enlightenment. It's only when you reach the sixth freedom, ascension, do you sort of have all this experience that you can get out of this world. And then you can graduate. Wear a little funny hat. So, any questions now that I've baffled you all? Don't worry, ignorant questions are fine. No questions? Well, all I can say is thank you for coming, and you can discuss amongst ourselves what you feel in our little pixie groups, pixie circles, as I call them, as against big circles, or we can go and eat. Yes, Steve.
Question, comment. So I apologize I didn't speak before you got to that. It was still kind of percolating inside, if you will.
That's okay.
But it occurs to me that there's, from my experience or perspective at least, two kinds of knowledge. One where you're reading or listening or absorbing, and then another where you're experiencing, as we did with the mantra and with the... how do those break down for you? Are there nuances with regards to how they cultivate enlightenment?
It's all grist to the mill. Whatever you learn from reading, listening to other people, then your mind takes that in and can maybe have access to non-verbal communication, which will give you further understanding. I mean, I wouldn't say that either of them is the prime way of learning, and I would say that all of it is, a contribution to your full enlightenment. Go into meditation. You will gain more enlightenment. Read books that other people have written. You will gain more enlightenment. That's the difference between the little e and the big E. Paul.
In terms of this being the journey of the soul, is this an inevitable journey? Why are we making this journey?
Because we're fulfilling the purpose of creation, which is to go back to God. I gave an address not so long ago called The Mind of the Absolute, and I found later a quote from the Master, Mars Sector 6, once again, Mars Sector 6, in 1956. He said, "You are the living, breathing, conscious parts of that thing you call God." So when the Masters say you are gods, he says He's just saying, you are gods, you just don't realize it. So you've got to get the knowledge and find out all these things so that you realize it. Once you realize it, or begin to realize it, then you can really start making progress. Then you're losing your ignorance. Daya had something to say. Oh, okay. I was reading and reading and reading this, and it just, knowledge, understanding of knowledge, that's what every single thing says here. Okay, he elaborates a bit more on a couple of words, but he keeps on saying knowledge. You must have knowledge. Knowledge for this, knowledge for that. Knowledge of the right kind. You don't need the one about nuclear physics, but you do need the one about the spirit and the soul and spiritual things, because that is God. It's not that nuclear physics isn't God or part of God, but it's not absolutely necessary to have that knowledge. So often we concentrate our knowledge on the things which are not needed for the journey. We need things, knowledge, to exist on this world, yes. But once we've got those, search for the higher truths, the higher knowledge, because that is the thing which will advance you. As he said about love, you will be asked when you die, after the initiation called death, either why you did not use this power more fully or why you tended to misuse the basic aspects of it. The basic aspects are those emotional parts of it that we have to start with. And do we misuse that, or do we use it to build our higher aspect of love? Be prepared for this question, for as sure as God, it will be asked, and you will answer. And that, to me, is almost a frightening thing. When a cosmic master of the rank of Mars Sector 6 says, you will answer, you will. Okay?
Isn't that in the one energy that we stand before and we ask that ourselves, how much love? Isn't that something that we do ourselves?
The one energy says that the energy is the energy that makes small man's heart beat, right, is the same energy that is the powers the universe.
Right, but isn't there a line about love?
I forget immediately.
I think it says love is wisdom in action.
Right? Simon, you know it.
Yeah.
You know it by heart.
Okay.
I was going to say something
Okay, go ahead.
in defense of physics.
Okay.
I'm not knocking physics. It's just that you don't have to go through physics to understand love and the universe.
Okay, could I say something about that? Because
Sure.
My experience is
Can we get some
is that is the as above, so below.
Yes.
So if what I sense, when I think of the right kind of knowledge, I think of a Kabbalistic perspective, and that when they're describing God, they speak of these 32 paths of wisdom, and they've also described as 30 paths of various kinds of intelligence. The word intelligence in Hebrew, seikel, is actually referring to working knowledge. So it's not just academic knowledge, it's a working knowledge. In other words, how does stuff work and can you use it? So it's a very practical kind of knowledge. And if we gain that in any field of the universe, how does this honestly actually work? It gives us insight into how other aspects of the universe work, including spiritual aspects. So the whole as above, so below.
But that's the understanding part.
It is, absolutely, it is. And I think that's how science used to be, which was an act of devotion. Because regarding God's creation and understanding of it as an act of devotion.
Physics and science used to be, this is the way to understand God.
Exactly, yeah.
Right now, they're denying it. So, of course, they will never actually get to God because they're denying that is.
Well, they're not being quite honest about things.
Yeah. Okay. Does our yes.
This is just kind of, since we're randomly bringing up some ideas with this, one of the ways that I look at service in everyday life, outside of big missions, is when we choose a career or a path as a physicist. So what path I choose to be of service to my fellow brothers and sisters is no better, worse. We all have a task, we all have a responsibility to help each other out. So I respect other career paths that people may take to be of service. In the educational system today, they're very hung up on you have to become this to be successful. So I guess what I'd like to put out to the group, what do we feel, should we be teaching our children, those of us that are parents, starting out being of service is even what we choose to do in paths of our lives as a career?
Well, wasn't it you saying outside that you were talking to someone and they, at least I got from it, that they were a doctor or something and they weren't earning enough money, and you know, what happened to service? No, money, you know, and yeah, but I think all of us choose our path that we feel comfortable in. And somewhere I wrote, and I don't know whether I left it in here, but we're led, I think, by our higher selves to a career path which will enable us to serve in the capacity that we are able to. Does that make sense? So, you know, some you know, that doctor that you were describing, he is being led into being a doctor, but he's lost sight of what that purpose of being a doctor is. All he thinks of is money, instead of thinking, I am helping other people. And you find that when you go into a career path that is good for you, you are able to help other people. But that's a very, you know, that's the materialistic end that we're starting from. Just as we have to know how to love our parents and so on before we can understand how to love other people. Bill.
A few years ago, I went into the dry cleaner to pick up the clothes, and I said to the lady, how you doing? We'd known each other for a long time. She said, oh, all I do is I just take people's dirty clothes and then I take it off the hanger, give them their clean clothes. You could tell she was really depressed. I said, stop a minute. I said, do you realize that you touch our lives profoundly? You make us look good when we go out in the world. When we go to work, we go to church.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Touching profoundly our lives. And her jaw kind of dropped. And it's given me a lot of pause for thought. However, what we're talking about, what makes things work, but what you're doing is let's look at this society. This is being of service on profoundly different levels.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's that service on these multiple levels, all of which is important. They're all callings for all of us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And prayer power is one of the highest ways to serve. Yes, you want to eat. I see your stomach rumbling.
It's now time for me to speak, actually.
Ah.
I'm going to take control.
I just have one, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One question. When we do the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, why do we do that in prayer power while it's going on? Why that particular mantra?
Because there were 4 mantras, and each mantra gives a different vibration. And you should be able to feel that. And so it gives a complete balance throughout the entire prayer power 4 sessions, so that instead of putting one octave of energy into the battery, you're putting 4 different, slightly different octaves of energy into the battery, which people that only stay for 2 miss out on.
Well, my 2 cents on that is, and I don't know if it's accurate, I seem to think that's one mantra where I personally, at least, can use to invoke energy very quickly, more quickly than the other ones. So perhaps that's why, I'm not really sure. That's from my experience. So thank you all for being here, and I just like for us now to have a bit of sharing within our individual circles before we head over to the George King Center for some refreshments. And I just want to thank, again, Reverend LaSalle Butcher and Reverend Michael Scully for their presentations today. And they have been very enjoyable and very educational, and I would actually dare to say illuminating, for me personally at least. So now please just form your circles again. And then during this time, as you start sharing your experiences and feedback, there may be questions. And so when there are questions, perhaps you can raise your hand and Michael and LaSalle can come to your circle to answer the question, if that is what you would like to do, and that's okay as well. Hi, everybody. I hate to break this up, but you're very welcome to continue to stay in the temple to continue your group discussions if that's what you prefer. However, we have a lot of delicious snacks prepared, as I mentioned earlier, by Melissa, and it's waiting for you over there at the George King Center if you would like to have some. But again, as I mentioned, you're very, very welcome to continue to stay here. So thank you all for being here today so that we can all join together to further our journey back to God. And again, I want to thank our 2 presenters, Reverend LaSalle Butcher and Reverend Michael Scully. And also I need to thank Steve. He has worked very, very hard today. And he is doing 3 persons' job today because our photographer, Mark Tassi, is away. And Steve is manning 2 video cameras along with camera for still photos. And of course, I need to thank my amazing team who has been working really hard to help put this together. But I think we need to maybe work past 12:30 to make sure we do even better next time. I mean, 12:30 a.m., like Reverend LaSalle mentioned. We just need to keep working harder and harder, where possible. So again, it's great to be able to be here to share this experience with you all, and I hope you enjoyed the event today. And our next event is on July 14th, and hope you can all join us again. And the title is going to be Harness Great Spiritual Power. So thank you all again. Oh, of course. I mean, sorry, I forgot to single out one person who was working hard. Sorry. I forgot to single out one person who was working very hard backstage, and that's Ernesto. He cannot poke his head out this time. Brian asked him to do that last time, but this time it's all blocked up. But he also came out to do some social media work. So there he is. And of course, I already thanked him because he's part of the expansion team, but just didn't mention Ernesto specifically. So that's that. And just one thing I want to mention, if you want to check out further studies on some of the materials covered today, we have a display out there. The 9 Freedoms, as well as the Initiation into Dynamic and Soul Mantra CD album. If you listen to that, you probably, if you're good with voices, you may recognize that LaSalle actually did some of the demonstrations of mantras on that CD. So that's the last thing I'd like to say. So please enjoy some food or continue your discussions. Thank you again.